History and Culture podcasts are a production of PCN, a nonprofit television network. Listeners like you make our programming possible. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit pcntv.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.
Welcome to PCN's History and Culture podcast. I'm Phil Beckman. This podcast series features interviews exploring Pennsylvania's rich history from the colonial era to industrialization, the Gettysburg Campaign to sports history, and from art to politics and more. Jeff Broadhurst is the chair and CEO of Eaton Park Hospitality Group. Eaton Park was founded in 1949, celebrating its 75th anniversary in 2024. Take us back to 1949. If you and I are pulling into a parking spot at that new Eaton Park, what would we experience?
You would experience, first of all, some incredible servers that are coming up and taking your order, most importantly, and then bringing the food back. And you'd be eating in your car, which back then was sort of the standard. That was the norm. And you would have also, on day one, you would have witnessed huge lines. And so long that actually Larry Hatch, who founded the organization, closed the restaurant down. And even before dinner, because we were so busy, and decided to start all over the next morning and restock and everything. So it would have been an incredible day to be there that day. I wasn't there, obviously, but I've heard great stories about it.
Talk more about Larry Hatch. Who was he?
Larry was an innovator, and he actually came from an organization called Isley's, which is still around to a degree, from their chip-chopped ham and the ice cream and the skyscraper ice cream cones that folks remember way back then. But he was an innovator, and the fact is that he opened this restaurant during very unique times and saw the demand, the need for something like that. And obviously after day one, when it was just lined around the block and down Route 51, he realized he had something there. And 75 years later, we're still in business and thriving.
Now, this was a time when car hops were kind of a normal part of the community and a more normal part of the business environment. How long did that period last? And how did the business change once that phase went away?
Interesting, and it lasted for a few years, and then folks decided they really wanted to come inside and eat, and that's when we really evolved our market, our concept to try to anticipate what the guests wanted, and that took us into really the 60s and 70s when we really started crafting this overall market for what we call family dining, and realizing the families want to come in a restaurant, come in and sit down. And that evolved for many years, continues to evolve, quite frankly. And we're all about making sure that we build the legacy for the family dining brand. And so when families 30, 40 years from now look back on sort of the nostalgic of the times and say, you know, Eaton Park was the place for me, and still is. And that's what's pretty cool. And I could talk more about it for sure. But what's interesting is we spent a lot of time with Fred Rogers when we started sort of crafting this family dining, because he was the best with families and knew what they wanted, knew what they needed, knew what they wanted. And my father and leadership team back in the 70s and 80s spent some time with him figuring out what do they want from a menu perspective, from an atmosphere to bring these families in and let them enjoy this fabulous experience. So,
how did they connect with Fred Rogers?
You know, they actually connected Basil Cox, who actually worked with Fred and Family Communication Network, were the ones that connected back then. And he was a great advocate for Eaton Park and really families in general. So we were trying to create something unique where families felt welcome no matter who you were. No matter how old your kids were, how young your kids were, and we still do. You can come in and be your family, and you drop stuff on the floor. It's not the end of the world. We'll pick it up afterwards and welcome you back the next time as well. So things haven't changed.
Now, any business that's been around for 75 years, especially in the restaurant world, goes through a lot of changes. When you look back now at 75 years, how does that reflect, say, the trends over time in restaurant business?
You hit it right, Phil, and it really does. It's constant evolution. And in our world, and I don't want to say we're lucky, but we spend a lot of time, everything doesn't work. A lot of it is anticipating and trying to anticipate what those guests are going to want tomorrow and next week and next year. And that's what we spend a lot of time thinking about. The evolution really is important to make sure that you're constantly evolving. If not in the restaurant business, we've seen examples over and over and over of people sort of living on what they've done in the past, and they're no longer around. So that's something we're really focused on, and what's next. And in many cases, it's not what we need to do differently, but how can we be better? Doing some of the same things we do, but just make them better over and over and over.
Is that something that you have to institutionalize within the business?
You do, and it really starts with a leadership team. We've got an incredible leadership team that's constantly focusing on evolution. And at the same time, we're not focused on failure. I mean, when we do fail, which we do, We don't sit there and dwell on it. We move on. And the only reason you can really innovate is you got to be willing to accept failure and move on from that for sure. But we've got an incredible team. We spent lots of time thinking about what's next, researching a lot of things and testing. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about, obviously, the organization. We've got the restaurants and the contract dining piece that build off each other. And they obviously have their best assets of each. But we can share best practices, and that really has been a huge benefit over the years for us.
So when you look at some of the advances that have taken place over time, everything from in 1978, the first salad bar opens,
Right.
You have your Caring for Kids campaign.
We do.
Talk about how these types of things come about.
I mean, the salad bar is something really important to think about because we still have about 25% of our guests that go through our salad bar, and it's something that's really significant. It's been around almost 40 years now, actually. This is a little over 40 years. And that's constant evolution. But it's also trying to figure out, when you think about the salad bar, what are the guests going to want from a salad bar experience next week and next year, and constantly redesigning that, bringing new items on, taking items off. In some cases, some guests like, but lots don't. So we need to continue to evolve on what is the majority of the guests going to want in the future. And we spend a lot of time in menu development on that particular asset, we'll say, of the restaurant concept. And then the other thing is, when you think about evolution, we really do spend a lot of time thinking about the community. And you mentioned the Caring for Kids campaign, which is a thing it's completely team member driven, and it's focused on pediatric hospitals, UPMC Care, Children's in Pittsburgh, and Fort Adams Fund in Harrisburg, and throughout our entire 14-state region, we focus on children's hospitals. But that really continues to evolve too. Finding ways that team members can stay engaged in giving back to the community. That's a big part of our company. We talk about one of our core values, we care about people. And that's our team members, that's our guests, that's the communities which we serve, and that's really an important part of our business.
I want to talk a little bit about your father, who was chair and CEO prior to you. Who was he? Where did he grow up? How did he become involved in the restaurant business?
It's an interesting history there, and I was actually just in his community last week and driving through, and actually I got some Smalley cookies up there too at Werner's Bakery, where they originated from. But he grew up in a small town called Titusville, where actually oil was found many, many years ago in northwestern Pennsylvania. And he actually was when he left college, Penn State, he went into the banking business, and then he eventually found his way to Eaton Park as a controller, treasurer back in the early 70s. And that was his first entryway into the restaurants. And before that, he loved cookies and all that kind of stuff. And that was sort of a little bit of, I guess, futuristic thinking about that. But he got into the restaurant business in the 70s, and then he acquired the company in the 80s. But he always had a passion. And the thing that I most appreciate about my dad is that, and the most important asset we have are our people. It's our folks that serve the guests each and every day, and he continues even to this day. And quite frankly, I'll see him tonight. He'll continue to remind us always that it starts with the folks that serve our guests, and that's something that no one in our organization ever forgets about, because we've got the best in the industry, for sure. But then he'll continue to evolve, and he's really an innovator. He loves to try things out. He knows they're not always going to work, and he continues to do that this day and age. And he challenges us, continually being on the board of, what's next, and don't become stagnant. But the salad bar, the bakery, were two really important things that he innovated. And they didn't work at first. I mean, he continued to evolve them. And that's just the way he's lived his life. My mother was a big part of it as well.
So was that sense of valuing people, both your customers and your employees, was that with the company from the beginning?
It was, and it was something that Larry appreciated as well, because in the restaurant business, you've got buildings, but in some cases the buildings are not the greatest looking buildings in the world. It's really the people, and that make the difference in experience. And all of us eat out, and all of us can remember you've got a good meal, but you really remember that time that someone took care of you and provided you an incredible experience. So only people can do that. And that's something that everyone in our organization, starting way back with Larry and the leadership team back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and really been a big part.
Did you ever meet Larry Hatch?
I did, yes.
What kind of a guy was he?
He was a great guy. I mean, he was a unique guy for sure, and down to earth, and had a sense of excitement for sure. And it was just something, I didn't spend a lot of time with him because I came in the organization and I worked in our restaurants first, but I really started back in the early 90s. And but I heard a lot of good stories about him for sure over the years as well. And his family was a big part of the organization as well.
So with your father involved with the organization while you were a child, what was it like growing up in that environment?
So that was interesting. We had a lot of meals at Eaton Park, I can tell you, and many meals at Eaton Park. It was fun because we'd always go out, and the one thing about being in a family business, whether it's a restaurant business or whatever, at least many businesses, it's trying to differ family and business. And so even when you're at a dinner table, many of our dinner tables were Eaton Park restaurants. So a lot of the focus was on, how can we be better? And obviously trying to find the ways of how this experience could be better rather than talking about the family. So there were lots of times we'd have to say, okay, you know what? We're going to focus on not talking about the business at this meal. And that's not always easy. Typically that would be my mother saying, okay, guys, because it was all boys in the family, guys, we're done talking business, okay? We're going to focus on just other things, anything outside Eaton Park. So that was fun. We still joke about that with my mom as well. But you know, we spent a lot of time growing up in there. I mean, college and high school and middle school. So it was, I can't say I knew I was going to go in the business, nor would Mark or Brooks say that, but it was something that, we always knew the door was open. And the fact is that we were always sort of welcome because we grew up in it. And it was a big part of our livelihood as we grew up from middle school and high school and all that good stuff. So we also worked there. Brooks, Mark, and I all worked at Eaton Park in high school. Two of us were cooks. One was a dishwasher. And that was also a great learning experience.
Talk more about that. What do you learn if this is your first job as a teenager, you're just coming into the world? What do you learn about work ethic and that sort of thing at that time?
First of all, you learn there's a lot of different people in the world. And you learn how to work with all aspects of people. And that's a little bit which I really value about the industry. You also learn that it's not the easiest job in the world. You're learning that, sometimes people don't always appreciate the experience. They may not appreciate the food or the service, and they let you know. So at the age of 15, 16, 17, that can be hard at times. But at the same time, that's a great learning experience for life in general, I think. At the same time, you also understand teamwork, because in a restaurant, it doesn't look always that complicated for people on the outside. They're just coming, it's complicated. And you really understand teamwork. You also work with different generations. So I could think I'd be the youngest when I started at 15 or 16. I'd be working with people 70, 75 years old. So in many cases, there's in some cases, we've got restaurants with 4 generations of folks. That is really valuable. Plus, it's fun. Learning from the older folks that, here's how they've done it in the past. And it's just a great way to learn going through life and at a very early age.
So after you graduate high school, where do you go?
So I went, when I left, I went to Cornell University, Hotel Restaurant School. After that, I had a great experience there, as did my brother Mark, and then Brooks went to Penn State, actually, but I went to Cornell. Had a great experience. I then decided I was going to go to grad school, so I went to Pitt, MBA school there. And then I decided I wasn't going to get in the restaurant business, interestingly enough. I went to work for a fabulous company called Federated Investors, family run at the time. Donahue family is a fabulous family, many people in the state know. And then I had the best boss ever, Jim Hamilton, who's still a dear friend, and just taught me so many important things. And 5 years into that, I realized it was time to get back to Eaton Park. Never knew I would come back, but we were just getting ready to start a new business called Broadhurst Dining. And my father and our CFO, Dan Wilson, had sort of called and came out and said, love for you to come back. And it's a great opportunity. And that was back in 1996, and I've never looked back. Still miss Federated for sure, and I still see my friends from Federated. Fabulous organization, but it's been great 28 years for sure, and love it.
Talk more about Broadhurst Dining. How much of a departure was it from what Eaton Park had been doing before?
Yeah, Phil, it's an interesting question. It really, the thought behind Broadhurst was that we wanted to get into some business that we knew, and that was food. We were already in food. At the same time, we didn't want to compete with ourselves, so we didn't want to start up a new concept. We also didn't want to be national. So Eaton Park, the next thing was, where do we go next? We were in 3 states. How broad do we want it to get geographically? And the natural thing was, let's try this contract dining thing. It was called Eaton Park Contract Dining at first. Now it's called Broadhurst Dining. And focusing on 2 segments in particular. That was the corporate dining and then the college and university world. And that's what we continue to be focused on. So we really stayed focused on how we got started in the business, which is rare. And but it was a little bit of departure. The biggest departure was that we currently, and it has not changed at all, we've got these chain restaurants, Eaton Park, Hello Bistro, and then the Porch are not really chains, independent restaurants. And then we've got this very entrepreneurial contract dining business called Broadhurst that every single menu is different. Everything is culinary chef created at the site, whereas restaurants, it's a chain. So we've got these very different restaurants still based on great service and incredible food. But it's been fabulous. It's been a great 28 years.
So as the company has branched out from its original concept to some of these things you're talking about, how did that affect its organization?
It was interesting. There were some folks I look back then, it absolutely had us thinking differently, because to go from a chain thinking mentality to something that's almost the opposite of a chain, every single location is different and unique. And we quite frankly get excited about that. And we celebrate that, especially with our clients in particular, saying, your account's completely different than this over here, and people really embrace that. That added complexity, no doubt about that. We had to bring in some different thinking, brought in some real experts in the contract dining world to say, okay, this is what's unique about this business. And we were fortunate it worked. We brought in the right people to help start the business, and that's sometimes doesn't always happen. But can we say we got lucky? A little bit, probably. But at the same time, I think the other thing, bringing in these new folks, a lot of it is trying to find the people that have the same values, the core values. And my father and Dan Wilson spent a lot of time thinking about that. And because what you don't want to do is bring in someone that really is going to rock the boat and has completely different values. And so we were pretty lucky with that, finding the folks that really valued what was important to the organization and to the family. And so far, got a long ways to go, but so far it's worked.
How do you do that? Maintaining core values over years is not an easy thing to do. How do you manage that?
No, it's not easy. A lot of it is just reinforcing it. And I can think about our leadership team. We talk about it every single month to start every meeting off. Every quarterly meeting, we talk about our core values. That's the very first thing we talk about. Reinforce it within the hourly workforce as well. And reminding, one thing, our purpose, it seems simple. Our purpose is to create a smile. It's simple yet very complex with the way we think about it. But a lot goes into this sort of creating a smile. Yes, our logo is the smiley cookie, but that's a small piece of it. It really is, how do you make people feel? And each and every day, when I get up in the morning, first of all, how am I going to smile? How am I going to create a smile on my own face? And that's where it starts. And we challenge people, when you get up in the morning, every morning is not ideal. It's not perfect, not the best morning ever, but how are you going to create that smile? Because that's how we can go in, whether it's the office or the restaurant, and create more smiles to our team. And then our team creates those within the field. So there's a lot of conversation around that, and we've got innovation and food, and fiscally responsible, and DE&I. Those are our 5 core values. So a lot of conversation and reinforcing, and then also asking questions. And that's important too, asking our team, how can we be better in these areas? What gets you excited to come into this place and work each and every day around these core values? And we evolve, and you tweak them. They're not static, and over time we've got to continue to evolve our core values. They probably won't change, but how we manage those core values, how we push them forward can change for sure.
You talked about smiles, and
yes.
Of course, everybody associates the smiley cookie with Eaton Park. How did that come about?
That's a good story, and that started in Titusville, Pennsylvania. My father would walk back from school each and every day, and he'd stop at Warner's Bakery. Ed Warner was the gentleman at the time, and he'd buy a smiley cookie. And Warner's Bakery is still up there. As I said, I was up there just last week, and had a smiley cookie from there, and they're fabulous. And then when he started eventually at Eaton Park in the 70s, and went back up to Titusville and asked Mr. Warner if he might be able to borrow the recipe, and obviously he tweaked the thing and to bring it back to Eaton Park, and that's sort of the history of it. And it's been a great tradition ever since. Every kid under 12 gets them free. Anyone that comes to the drive-through window gets them free, takeout free, and we give a lot away to the community. So not a big money maker, but at the same time, it really does create a smile, and that's what it's all about.
So at some point, you take over as chair and CEO of the
yes. company
from your father. Talk about that transition. When did it happen, and what was it like for you?
With the CEOs, the chair one was just recent, and it's not a really, it was sort of minor how that took place. But the CEO one was more symbolic for sure, because my father had been the CEO for a long time, and that was back in 2007 or 2008, I think it was. It was sort of teed up, so I don't think it was a surprise to anyone. But at the same time, he made the announcement when we got all of our GMs together every other year with their spouses, and he made it at the conference that he'd be stepping aside, still on the board, still as chair, but that Jeff would be taking over. And more importantly, reinforced how excited he was about the overall leadership team. It wasn't about me. It was more about just how excited he was about the leadership team, because our whole leadership team was there as well. And we've got a great team. We always have. We've been fortunate with that. So it was more about just the transition. He wasn't going anywhere. Interesting enough, we've got a new restaurant that's opening up here momentarily, and he'll be there for the opening. He'll be there welcoming the team when we bring the team back and do that. He'll also take the management team out for dinner as well. So he's still active for sure on the board and loves to come out to the restaurants.
Given the company's long history and your family connection to it, do you feel a heavy responsibility?
You do, and there's no doubt about that. At the same time, I work with my two brothers, so I'm fortunate with that. And so I can't say it's not all on my shoulders by any means. We spend a lot of time, Brooks, Mark, and I, talking about it. And also, I mean, the leadership team is family. And so that's a big part. And we've been together, our teams, I mean, for the most part, 90% of them have been around 20 plus years. So we're all family. Everyone, I think, has the same, they feel probably the same sense of responsibility. If you ask them, I know Brooks and Mark do for sure, but the rest of the leadership team, I feel pretty confident they've got the same level of stress probably. They want to keep it going. 75 years in the restaurant business is unheard of. There's a few, not many, that have made it that long. Most make it maybe a couple months or a couple years. So we all feel that sense of responsibility. And it's not just to keep the brand going, it's really for our team members. We've got almost 10,000 team members now. This year we celebrated 3 that had over 50 years. Which is just unheard of. We have over 700 that have worked over 25 years now. So it's more, how do we keep that legacy so their kids can work at Eaton Park as well?
Now, as you're talking about, you have this tradition of long tenure for your employees and your leadership team. You have the Half Century Club to honor that. And what types of things do you do to encourage people to stay and to celebrate their long tenure?
First, it's creating that atmosphere they want to stay. And that's something I always say, you can never have too much fun, especially from the manager's perspective. I mean, each and every new manager that starts in the company, our leadership team talks to all of them. It's typically either open or closed. And the thing I always close with, there's no way to have too much fun. You as the leader, you as the manager need to create that atmosphere so people want to come work with you. Because it does start with the leaders. It doesn't start with me. It starts with our entire team and most importantly, our management in the field. So that's number one. Number two, providing them great benefits and fair pay for sure. That's really important. And making sure that they feel comfortable and go home and do what they want to do. And also giving them a sense of pride that they're working in a great place that cares about them as an individual, as a human being. Not just about, what, come and do their job, but care about them personally. And that's really important as we go out there. And we spend a lot of time, our leadership team, I really love being in the field. That's, if I could do that 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, I could. Every once in a while, I've got to be back in the office for meetings. But my best days are being in the field, talking to the team, finding out ways that we can make this company better for them and their families. And that's really important.
I want to go back to innovation. One of the things that you implemented was the pickup window, which are standard in fast food areas. But how is it different for your company?
It is, and that was something, Phil, that really we spent a lot of time doing. Originally, we had these little, I'll say, parking spots that you'd pull up to, and we'd run the food out to you. And the thing we didn't think about is, in Pennsylvania, we do get some rain. So typically, someone would pull up, they'd roll down their window, they'd get soaked. They'd say, hey, my name is Jeff, my food, please. And they'd go back in, bring the food back out, the window would come back down and get soaked twice. And we realized this isn't going to work. This is not convenient. It's all about convenience. So we spent about 1.5 years trying to figure out how we could actually punch holes in our walls, because in full service restaurant, there's not a lot of takeout windows or pickup windows. Fast food, as you said, everywhere. But our competition is really more the full service. We don't try to compete with fast food. So we spent about 1.5 years. Monroeville was our very first store. Now we have over 50 of them. And I'll tell you, it's been fabulous. And we continue to evolve the overall takeout experience, and that's really important. Lent is massive for us. Lines around the restaurant multiple times, and it's fun. COVID, it was also a big savior as well, because as you know, people didn't want to come in and eat. So that takeout window really was incredible. And it builds year after year after year. It really is a differentiator, and it's not easy to just punch a hole in a wall and people show up, and because it disrupts the back as well. So it's been great for us.
Now, another thing, of course, one of the fads that came, well, I don't know fad, but one of the trends that emerged was fast casual dining. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Hello Bistro. How did you adapt to that?
That was something, Hello Bistro was something that we've always wondered, is there a different type model for Eaton Park? And we've done diners over the years. And this was something we wanted to take the best of Eaton Park. And that's how it started. We've got the salad bar I mentioned. We've got lots of guests that come through that. And we've got our burgers. Our Super Burger's incredible. Fresh, never frozen meat now, and it's just incredible. How do we put those together? There's a ton of burger places, and there's a lot of salad places. So you didn't see them together. So we sort of put them together and opened our first one, when was it now? 12 years ago, I think it was. and continue to evolve in those concepts. It's fun. I don't know if you've ever been to one before, but we've got 8 of them, and it's really something unique. So salad lovers in many cases wouldn't eat with burger lovers and vice versa. Now they can. They can come in our restaurants, and if you like a burger and I like a salad, we can eat together in a fast casual environment with really high quality food. Quickly too, convenient.
Now you also have a program where you're locally sourcing some of your food. Talk about that.
That actually started in the early 2000s, and that was something my brother Brooks and Jamie Moore really innovated on. The challenge in that market back then was, yes, Pennsylvania, as we know, has got some of the best farmers in the country, hands down. It was trying to get that product from the farm to an Eaton Park restaurant. There just wasn't the transportation. So that's how Jamie and Brooks spent a lot of time with our suppliers figuring out how can we make that happen. And over time now it's been incredible. And yes, locally sourcing, whether it's produce or honey or chocolate or quite frankly beef jerky or whatever, we try to get as much local as possible. And the transportation now is in place and it's been in place. So it's been, I think, a win. I know it's been a win for us and our guests, and it's been a win for sort of the local community as well.
Jeff Broadhurst is the chair and CEO of Eaton Park Hospitality Group. Thanks for speaking with me.
Phil, thanks a lot. Really, truly appreciate it. And we look forward to the next 75 years, but I appreciate you inviting me out here. Have a great day.
Listeners like you make PCN programming possible. Full episodes of PCN's history and culture content, like the interview you just heard, are available to stream with the PCN Select app. Explore other documentary programs, event coverage, and a lot more. This project was financed in part by a grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Department of Community and Economic Development. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit pcntv.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.